Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And today's lesson's going to cover undifferentiation and differentiation, which are two big words that we used a lot in Feldenkrais. And I just wanted to show everybody what that looks like. We're just going to go up to the hip joint. So we're going to talk about the differentiation and the undifferentiation of the hip joint. And the hip joint, when we talk about a joint, it's the articulation or the connection between the head of the femur, and it's called an acetabulum of the pelvis. But really the easiest way to think about it, this is the ball. You can see that looks like a little ball. And this is the socket in the pelvis. So the joint is where these two pieces meet and where there can be movement. Now, the interesting thing about the hip is when you tell people to put their hands on their hip, right? They put their hands there. And we can see that's a little higher than the hip. So when we're going to put our hands on our hip, we would actually have to put our hands right here. So way down here is the hip joint. Let's talk about undifferentiation. It's a fancy word, but basically what it means, if the pelvis and the leg are undifferentiated, that means that the pelvis and the leg are moving in the same direction. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of movement in the hip joint here. They're kind of both moving upward in an upward direction together. So that's undifferentiation, and we'll do that in the lesson. Now, there's also differentiating the leg from the pelvis. And that's what we do when we walk, right? We're primarily, and now you can see the pelvis isn't moving much, but you can see this ball inside the socket is twisting and turning. We're used to doing that. We're used to moving our leg, our femur, in relationship to the pelvis. Now, something that we don't do or think about as much is we can differentiate the pelvis from the femur. So now the leg is straight and the pelvis is tilting forward and backwards. And now you can see that the ball is staying in place, but the pelvis is rotating around the ball. So we're going to also do that today, differentiating the pelvis from the femur, which has quite a different feel to it. Now, we could even do both, and we're going to do both. So now we're going to differentiate both parts of these. And now you can see that the pelvis and the ball of the femur are moving opposite, or they're moving toward each other. The leg and the pelvis moves toward each other and away from each other. So this is differentiating, and this is undifferentiating. And you can see when we're differentiating, there's a lot of movement in the hip joint. When we're undifferentiating, there's not as much movement in the hip joint.